Hello, Disruptors, and welcome back to the 64th episode of the Oligarchy Disruptor podcast with your host, Bennett Leon. And of course, we have the lovely Ashley Downing with us as well.
Hello.
Alrighty, guys. So today we are going to talk about a really interesting topic, something that we haven't talked about, but that's been in the news a lot since appearing on the Katie Halpert show. And that is the topic of Tara Reade and the sexual allegation assault, the sexual assault allegation against Joe Biden. And there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of shit to talk about here, and we're going to cover all of it. But where I think we should start, and I think we'll just jump right into it, where I think we should start is like a little history lesson on like what she accuses him of doing, right? So basically, Tara Reade was a staffer of his back in the 90s, right? And Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, or like if I mess up or what all. But yeah, so she was a staffer of his in the 90s, and while he was a senator, and while like they were in the hallway, I guess there was like a semi-private hallway that Joe Biden pushed her against the wall, and he pushed his like fingers and like penetrated her with his fingers and stuff, and she pushed him away, and he said all these disgusting things. We'll talk about what he said, allegedly by Tara Reade, and what else happened from there? So basically, she left the job. She ended up quitting. But what's different about this compared to Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, I believe was her full name, against Brett Kavanaugh and like all these people who were really with the Me Too movement at the time, not completely agreeing with everything, throwing this guy behind bars already practically, right? But as you can see, it didn't work out that way. And what's obviously really interesting about it is that they're kind of taking an opposite stance when it's against one of their own people, aka Joe Biden. And we're going to see a lot of hypocrisy. That's going to be kind of a reoccurring thing in this episode that you're going to see, and with a lot of people that you might respect and find interesting. People like Nancy Pelosi, Stacey Abrams, even. That one kind of surprised me, to be honest. That one's a blow. Yeah, she had potential. But Elizabeth Warren as well. I mean, you name it. These people are all vying for the VP spots, and they don't give a fuck about anything or anyone.
Kirsten Gillibrand.
Her too, dude.
That was surprising.
But what's different about her compared to Ford's allegation against Kavanaugh is that there's a lot of other people that can corroborate her story.
Yeah.
Her mother that called in to the Larry King show the clip has since been deleted from, at least on their online archives for the show. Now it has to spread through people just sharing it because they took clips of it and shit.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to kind of follow along, but let's go ahead and do it. Let's jump in. Let's start off with a video. Let me share my screen with you. So the video is going to be from CNBC talking about how a new poll shows how voters are divided on Joe Biden and the allegation of sexual assault by Tara Reade. So we're going to see a couple moderators here from CBSN, and we're also going to see Ryan Grimm, who is the DC bureau chief for The Intercept. So it's a pretty, I recommend The Intercept, although they have some kind of weird articles sometimes, I will mention, but for the most part, they are pretty good. Ryan Grimm does a fantastic job. He's been covering this from the very beginning, basically, after appearing on the Katie Halpert show. So kudos to you, Ryan. That's really dope. So let's go ahead and jump in. Yeah.
Prospective homes here on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, I should say. And Anne-Marie, you are in Philadelphia, and there's still a lot of news to get to as we've been listening to several press conferences, including New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. We heard earlier from the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. We're also scheduled, of course, to hear from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. But let's dig into some politics, Anne-Marie. There's a new poll out that shows voters are divided on the sexual assault allegations against former Vice President Joe Biden. A Monmouth University poll released today shows nearly a third of Americans are unsure what to make of the allegations, while 32% say the allegations likely are not true. 37% of voters believe Tara Reade. Ryan Grimm is here to give us some insights into these claims. He is the Intercept's DC bureau chief and has been at the...
Oh, wait 1 second. All right, so let's start it up.
Forefront of the reporting on Tara Reade. So thanks so much for joining us, Ryan. Let's start with your reporting. You published 2 pieces, one of which uncovered the Larry King clip featuring what is reportedly Tara Reade's mother. Let's take a listen to that.
I'm wondering what a staffer would do besides go to the press in Washington. My daughter has just left there after working for a prominent senator and could not get through with her problems at all. The only thing she could have done was go to the press, and she chose not to do it out of respect for him.
Really interesting that she chose to do that out of respect for him now.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it just really shows the times then also that women were really seen as being not, I wouldn't necessarily say less than men, but they were seen as being something that is like, it would be promiscuous almost, for her to come forward and for her to be the one that jeopardizes his career and his name. I feel her saying that makes it seem like she was doing it more out of fear of what it would do for him, which says a lot about the times.
And like we're going to find out right now, Ryan Grimm said that Tara Reade said to him that she felt really she felt mortified when she found out that her mother called in to the Larry King show and started talking about her experience. But you're going to hear also Ryan Grimm lay down the facts with this stuff and basically point and rule out every other thing that it could be other than the mother of Tara Reade, which people have been trying to say, like, how do you know who that is? Like, that there's no name there, there's no nothing, there's no announcement. But he'll lay it out for you just real quick. Let's watch.
Really fascinating stuff there. So, just for our audience, give us a couple of insights into your reporting. How were you able to verify that this is Reade's mother, and what insight does this give us into what may have happened in 1993?
So we can pretty conclusively say that was Reade's mother, particularly because she mentioned to me during the course of the reporting that her mother called into the Larry King show and kind of mortified her by mentioning her in a veiled way in her interaction with the Biden office. When we originally published the story, I hadn't been able to find the video yet, but she had kind of more or less accurately described the thrust of what the call was. Now, her memory was not perfect on it. The way that we can be pretty sure that that's her mother is that her mother was living in San Luis Obispo at the time. This is a caller from San Luis Obispo. Call is in August of 1993. She says her daughter just left a Senate office. Tara Reade left a Senate office in August of 1993. So the only way it could not be her is if there was some other mother living in San Luis Obispo whose daughter had also had problems in a Senate office and had also left in August of 1993. And the way that you can kind of dismiss that potential coincidence is that Tara mentioned the call to me before it was found. I mentioned the call on a podcast interview, and a listener to that podcast was actually able to find it using a transcription service that I hadn't thought of using because I didn't realize that some of those services went back to the early 1990s. But to your other question, it's important to talk about what it confirms and what it doesn't confirm. So on the latter, it does not confirm anything about a.
Oh, I just really quick want to pause it here because this is, of course, his response to the allegation, and I want to go over it because they don't really say everything word by word. But I may not recall these moments the same way, but and I may be surprised at what I hear, as if he has no idea what he did, which he very well might not. But if you don't, bro, you shouldn't be running for the presidency. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's great.
But we have arrived at an important time, aka the Me Too movement, right? When women feel that they can and should relate their experiences, and men should pay attention, and I will. So we talked about this before, right, Ashley? So like, what was our basically our consensus about like what he really meant here?
Okay, well, I'm a person of words, and I like breaking down sentences and really like looking at what the meaning behind these words are. And to me, it really is saying that, like, when he says we have arrived at an important time, like you mentioned, he's talking about the Me Too movement, which, if we can all kind of recollect this time a few years ago, and even before that with Anita Hill, Democrats have been believe all women. I mean, with Brett Kavanaugh, it was like overboard, like with in before and after the Brett Kavanaugh thing. It was like, no matter who comes forward, you have to believe them. Like, due process was out the window. And now he's kind of saying we've arrived at this hashtag Me Too movement time when people feel they can and should relate their experiences. So now he's kind of saying, oh, forget about everything else we did say about hashtag Me Too. Really, what we're saying is that we've arrived at this time when women feel like they can come forward and discuss how they feel, and they can tell us what they feel like happened. But I don't recall these moments the same way. So I'm kind of surprised, and I'm going to listen and pay attention, because that's really what this important time is all about, is listening to women, not believing women. And so I'll listen, but none of this is true because I don't recall these moments the same way.
And what I think is just so fascinating is that like he has this like huge moral standing in the Democratic Party, right? Like he's running on like this premise against Donald Trump, like let's bring morality back to America, like that whole thing. But like when you do things like this, and you're a creepy ass mofo, and you're smelling people's hair, and you're like getting really weird, and like talking about how kids used to like put
touch
your hair,
your thighs.
yeah, like your the leg hair when you were in the pool or some shit like that. Like, what the fuck is that, bro? Like, this dude is such a huge weirdo. I don't know. It could be just like grandpa shit. I don't know, but like.
And I think that it's important to point out, too, that this is a very serious allegation. It's not like something, and I'm not trying to put down any situation, but it's not like he went up to some girl who he thought liked him and grabbed her butt. This is not one of those types. Not that I'm saying that that's okay, but I'm just saying that the type of culture that was present in the 90s, and even when I was in high school, to be honest with you, that was something that I think people, as bad as it is, it was almost like a thing of affection, or like, like, I don't think that women really took it as being a sexual assault type situation, which is to not necessarily say that that's not the case, because for some women that is what it is. But this is something where he physically put something of himself inside of somebody else without her permission. I mean, like, I don't understand how more obvious of sexual assault this could get. And that for them to say that this is just, no, there's not enough evidence. It's no big deal or whatever. I don't know. Let's see. Let's let due process take its course and see what happens.
Absolutely. So while you were talking, I thought it was a great time to just pull up this little snippet of the article that we were going to bring up by
Oh
the New
yeah.
York Post. And once again, the title of this is the hashtag #MeToo hypocrites who've gone silent for Joe Biden. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because it brings up the topic of the hypocrites of the Democratic Party that have that were really vocal during the Me Too movement, but have since gone silent or completely rejected anything or endorsed the due process of the situation, basically taking a safe route or whatnot, something that they didn't want to do when it was Kavanaugh up there on the stand to take all the hits. So let's talk about what she alleges for him. So Reade says that when she pushed back, once again, this is like when they're in the hallway, right? That scene where in the hallway, he just pushed like her against the wall. I'm assuming he just put his fingers inside of her. Oh, you can see it right here. It's actually right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been disgusting and dispiriting to watch the treatment of Tara Reade, a former Biden staffer who alleges that as a member of his staff in 1993, the senator pinned her against a wall in a quasi-private hallway, stuck his hand underneath her skirt, and shoved his fingers inside of her. Reade says that when she pushed back, Biden said, "Oh man," like doesn't okay. Like when I read this, like doesn't this totally sound like Joe Biden? Like something he would say, "Oh man, I heard you liked me." Like he says stuff like that now. Like I feel like that's totally believable. She goes on to, or he goes on to say, "You're nothing to me," before roughing her by the shoulders and telling her, "You're okay, you're fine," and walking off. Like, how is this dude any different and less terrorizing than Donald Trump?
Well, and honestly, his rhetoric is exactly what a perpetrator would say, or somewhere along the lines of something like that, to intimidate somebody to not want to say anything, to say that, oh, well, I thought that this is something that you wanted. I'm this senator. You're nothing. No, as in no one's gonna believe you, sort of thing. It's crazy.
They're telling the same thing to the Democratic Party, like their base right now with elections,
Yeah,
Same thing, basically. It's absolutely
it's
insane.
crazy.
All right, let's go ahead and resume the video.
Sexual assault. What it does do is it buttresses her credibility, because there are a lot of questions around whether or not she actually filed a complaint, whether or not she complained at the time about anything going on with the Biden office. And this is evidence that she had talked to her mother about complaints with the Biden office that were significant enough that the press would care about them. So it puts away the possibility that she only in 2019 decided to start coming forward with utterly fabricated complaints. Like it demonstrates that this goes back to her time there. When her friend Linda Lacoste came out just recently saying that she told her about the assault in 1995 or 1996, sitting on the front steps in front of their apartment building, that also adds to the fact that she's been telling this story consistently since the early 1990s. There's also a friend of hers who's anonymous at this point, doesn't want her name used, who she told about this at the time. She also said she told her mother. Her mother has passed away, but this call gives some credibility to the claim that she was talking to her mother about problems that she was having with the Biden office.
It's all really information, because this is something that she's alleging happened decades ago. It's difficult to provide proof.
So like watch how like he'll kind of like say all this stuff that he's learned about, like all this reporting that he's done over all these months with Tara Reade, like all these people that I'm sure he's had to talk to compile all this evidence. But what I want you guys to notice, if you aren't as avid news watchers, is how these moderators, and you'll see this is a reoccurring thing in the news, but they'll kind of push back against their whoever they're having on the show, as long as as long as they don't agree with them, you know what I'm saying? And that's what you're going to see here. Like I started at the beginning to here, and I wanted to pause it to kind of highlight it for you guys, just so you are aware that they are kind of like putting their own twist on it, which is what ultimately all these news outlets do.
Joe Biden says that none of this happened at all. Some of the people who were working in his office say they don't recall any issues with her. And so it is important that people know that there are others who say they do remember her talking about it at the time or shortly after it. You wrote another really interesting piece about the Time's Up movement and how Time's Up did not seem interested in Reade's story. Why do you think that is?
So they were, I would characterize it differently. They were interested in the story, and they interacted with Reade over the course of several weeks. And Reade, for a while, thought that Time's Up was going to take and fund her case. It turned out that didn't happen. The reason that they have said they decided not to was on legal advice. So Time's Up is a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit, which is housed under the National Women's Law Center. And they said that, according to the legal advice that they were given, that because Joe Biden is running for federal office, that would implicate their tax exempt.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Right, so Me Too, or Time's Up is this organization. I pulled up this one resource so we could kind of have it. This is from Time's Up, their website. And once again, this is their about section, and in here they say, we insist upon a world where everyone is safe and respected at work, a world where women have an equal shot at success and security, a world where no one lives in fear of sexual harassment or assault. So basically, this is an organization that protects women when issues of cases of sexual assault occur in the workplace, which would fit the bill for Tara Reade, right?
Exactly.
But that's what's very interesting. So that's why they even had this correspondence with Tara Reade in the very beginning. Like, okay, like let's talk. Like, what can we do for you? This sounds dope. And when they found out, oh shit, this is Joe Biden we're talking about. Oh, never mind. Why? Because they're literally telling us why. Because they could jeopardize their nonprofit status. So they're being very selective on who fits the criteria for who they can go after. It's not just anybody anymore. It's everybody except Joe Biden or any of the really powerful people that can threaten their organization, which is shitty in my opinion. So let's go ahead and continue this unless you want to comment anything else.
No.
Okay, sounds good.
Status, and it would look like they were participating in electioneering. You could certainly, I think, find tax lawyers who would back up some element of a conservative interpretation like that. More commonly, you find tax lawyers who would say that as long as your organization is following a strict set of criteria. In other words, as long as Time's Up is doing what it does, which is represent women who have allegations against men in male-dominated industries, then it doesn't matter if that man happens to be also running for federal office at the time.
Brian, what did you make of former Vice President Biden's interview that he gave to MSNBC? And I understand, of course, that that's a friendly news network, but the interview did hit upon a lot of the questions that you raised in some of your reporting, specifically with regards to the complaints that Ms. Reade may have lodged with the Senate. And the Vice President said that he was asking or directing or requesting that the Senate release any records or any information that Ms. Reade may have given to them back in 1993. There was some question over his files at the University of Delaware. There are some who are saying that Democrats are in danger of coming off as hypocrites because of the accusations that were lobbied against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and former Senator Al Franken. And there are others who are saying, well, at least he's addressing them, albeit in an interview that he gave on MSNBC. He hasn't done it often, unlike the President of the United States, who's had multiple instances of women who've come forward to allege sexual assault or misconduct, and he has not denied all of them. So I wonder how you read what the vice president is doing as far as answering these claims made by Ms. Reade. Is he being transparent enough for you?
Right. He had a fine line to walk, because politicians in general don't want to give extra oxygen to allegations until they absolutely have to. Democrats in particular don't want it to look like they are they're not believing women, or they're not listening to women, or they're not giving women a chance to be heard. So his line to walk is he was trying to deny this particular allegation without attacking kind of the Me Too movement more broadly, or women's right to be heard in this space. There have been so many advances made by the Me Too movement since 2017, which are under assault now, and he doesn't want to be blamed for helping to roll back the Me Too movement. When it came to his papers, I don't think he handled that part particularly well, because Republicans are extraordinarily anxious to get a storyline going that Joe Biden needs to open up his University of Delaware papers. And it's not simply to look for
the papers are going to be the new Hillary Clinton's emails. That's what it's going to be. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, or Trump's tax returns.
Except for that wouldn't be a really good one, because nothing ever happened with it and it went straight to shit. I mean, I guess
people are
Hillary
still
Clinton,
fighting.
People
are still fighting for it. I think I just read the other day something about a New York judge saying that he had to turn them over. But I don't want to be quoted saying that. But I'm pretty sure I read that.
I mean, I hope so. I hope you're right. But this dude doesn't want to give it up.
The fact of the matter is, if you have evidence that could possibly prove something, why wouldn't you want to look at it? Whether it's going to prove it or not, it would prove it or not. So let's look at it.
Exactly. But that's what the dude is hiding. It kind of, that's what you meant by the tax returns. He's hiding something by that. Oh, okay. I thought you meant in the other. Okay, never mind. Whatever. So, okay. So let's go ahead and continue the video.
Piece of paper that might confirm that Tara Reade had filed a complaint about harassment at the time. It's really to do similarly to what they did to Hillary Clinton with John Podesta's emails, which is produce in the final months of the campaign a drip of negative stories, because reporters would love nothing more than to years of files and look for his letters to segregationists, looks for his interactions with foreign leaders, look for anything else, because most of what he did throughout his political career puts him on the opposite side of where the Democratic Party is today politically. So the Trump campaign would be able to use that to drive a wedge between Biden and his potential voters. So by kind of tamping down or trying to kind of shut down a search of those papers, he probably played into the trap there, because journalists are going to side with transparency. I think a smarter move, and I think this is where he might ultimately end up, would be to say, okay, look, I don't think that any personnel records related to Tara Reade are in those files, but I will ask the University of Delaware to run a search strictly limited to papers for Tara Reade, and then once you have done that, then you've satisfied that particular demand.
But what did he actually do? He sat there and he said, "There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Don't even look for it. There's nothing there." They're like, "Well, you can do this, or you can do that. Why would you look for it? Why would you look for it? It's not there. It's by definition, it's not there." What the fuck? Why would you just keep repeating that? Fucking psychopath.
Well, and the thing is if this was any other sexual assault allegation, if somebody walked into a police station and said, hey, this happened to me, and there are some sort of records out there that could prove whether it happened or didn't happen, even a possibility that it could prove something or not, they would go look for it.
I think so too.
I mean,
I think so too. But I mean, that's the crazy world we live in, the hypocrisy that exists in our political world today, and of course, in our government. So I think it's a great place to wrap up. Let's wrap up here. Thank you, guys, again so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate your time. Make sure to tell your mom, your dad, your kids, your grandma. I know you can't touch everybody right now, but you can always send them a quick text like, yo, hey, there's a new dope podcast. He just talked about this Tara Reade thing. Super dope. Go ahead, check it out. A lot of information in there. So I can already see those text messages going out, like that one, those email, whatever thing. But yeah, dope. So anything you want to mention before we go?
No. Give us a 5-star review.
Oh yeah. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, guys. We are an up-and-coming progressive podcast, and we only seek to educate you guys to make the world a better place, educate you to make better decisions at the ballot box.
Definitely.
So let's go ahead and wrap up. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.
Bye.